right.
you are, brother. Talk
We
to you.
have my brother here, Pastor Mike Meadows. We're going through some technical difficulties. But no, Mike, the one reason I wanted to talk to you, a lot of times when I see pastors, sometimes people think that they're unapproachable or they hold them up on a pedestal. And when I first met you, when I was incarcerated, you've never come off like that. So just as a man, what is your Christian walk like just as a man of God? What is something that you've been able to learn about your 15-year-old that you might not have paid attention to if not for COVID?
It's a good question. What is something I've learned? Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I think it has really let me see how much he has matured into an adult. You know, one of the things that from a biblical standpoint, this idea of adolescence doesn't really exist, right? You have children and then you have adults in scripture. You don't really see this adolescent period that we have kind of in our sociological understanding of the world today.
Mhm.
And I've seen that bear out in my 15-year-old, right? Like he's living in this transitionary period where he's a whole lot more of a man than I realize. You know, he's got man thoughts and man understandings and perspectives on ways. He's not a little boy anymore. And I think COVID has allowed me to see that more clearly because we've had more time to talk about things. And we've just been in certain circumstances where, you know, being able to have a conversation on whatever's going on in the world, even with the election and all of that that's going on lately, and realizing, you know, I'm not raising a little boy. I'm raising a man. I mean, this boy is, you know, about to be a man in the world. He's about to be, you know, doing his own thing and pursuing things, and, you know, just realizing how much the Lord has grown him into a man. And also, just for me, just the burden of realizing I ain't got much more time left with this boy, and I want to make it count because, you know, he's not a little boy anymore. And I think this time has really highlighted that for me as we've had conversations on just issues, and I've just been blown away at how aware he is and how much understanding he has, and not just childish understanding, but mature understanding of things in a way that just really encourages me as a dad. And yeah, things I probably wouldn't have noticed in the midst of the chaos of life had we not had this time. So,
Okay. You have, since I've met you, not only encouraged me, but also did what you could to equip me, not only from the pulpit, but just being a friend, speaking with me, praying over me. And so I know that besides personally, you believe in rehabilitation. And being a former officer, why do you believe so much in, I'm not going to say a second chance, but in the idea of rehabilitation?
hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. I think one thing in particular, Sean, that stands out to me as I look over my life is when I was a cop in Central Texas. There was this one situation where I was talking with this 14-year-old girl who was pregnant with her second child at 14. And I was asking her what she wanted to do with her life. She was kind of in this crisis. Obviously, I mean, she's pregnant with her second child at 14. Her life is kind of a crisis, right? And we were talking, and her aspirations in life were to live at the government apartments in town and to have a little pocket money in her pocket. And at 14 years old, that's all she aspired to be in life.
You're speaking on the truth. That's one reason that didn't plan it, but the current job that I have at Jail to Jobs, the youth ages 17 to 24, I was speaking to someone today and they were like, Sean, there seems to be a gap. You know, you have different people who have been in trouble with the law and they're real young and they have that juvenile experience and state school experience in Texas and they're not getting the help, or they're old and they're off to prison. And then that life really doesn't bode well for a future from a statistical standpoint. And I was telling her that's why I believe in Jail to Jobs, because what other job could you get where you have an opportunity to break the cycle of poverty one youth at a time? Because when I really thought about it, I said, what's the difference between Jail to Jobs and all the other programs? Well, we teach life skills and we teach job skills and they're getting paid. So they're getting paid to learn about life, and we're working side by side with them. That's how a few weeks ago I stepped on a nail. I don't know if you saw the video. I've never been on it because I stepped on the
One of the
nail.
things, Oliver, that I've always been really impressed with you about is just, and I think, when we met in prison, you had all eyes on you, right? Like you were in a position where, if you messed up, everybody was going to use that and see that and know that. There wasn't no separating your role in the church and separating your life, because those two things were intermingled, right?
Yes.
And I think that's one of the things that I really respected about you. And, and that's one of the things that really drew me to you, was like, here's a man who's not just talking the talk, but he's really trying to walk the walk. And he's doing it in a way that he's getting the respect of his peers. Because I think a lot of times as a minister, I see guys who are zealous for positions. And I've talked about this over the years. I've seen a guy zealous for position, but his peers don't affirm that. Right. And that's a problem for me. Like, if you really are called and have been equipped by the Lord to do this, then there should be some affirmation from the people around you. And if nobody around you is affirming that, then maybe that should be a clue, that maybe that's not for you. And, and one of the things that I've always appreciated about you is that was always affirmed. Your peers always respected you because of that. Not just us coming in from the free world and seeing it, but even the people who were incarcerated with you. But now you don't have that kind of structure around you, right? So now you could kind of set that aside and you could compartmentalize your life in ways that you couldn't do it before. And so how have you guarded yourself from the temptation to compartmentalize things in your life so that you could still live out that sort of transparent sincerity that I knew you for when you had no other choice? And now, since you got options and you can kind of hide things, and people at work don't have to know about what goes on over at home and stuff like that, how have you navigated that? What's that been like for you?
I'm out here and there's no accountability like there was when I was in prison, all eyes on me. In my mind, God is still there.
I think something you said there that's always helpful for me, and maybe it's helpful for somebody who listens to this, is that we need people in our lives who challenge us to live more faithfully to Christ.